Join us in celebrating 50 years of producing high-purity polycrystalline silicon, an exciting milestone for Hemlock Semiconductor and Dow Corning corporations, and a chance to reflect on 5 decades of progress. Join us on a walk down memory lane as 3 retirees swap stories and talk about then versus now, and the fact that headquarters looks nothing like the rural farm where they were interviewed back in 1961.
And all the plant I worked in was new, but nothing so modern as when I walked in here today. Security is a lot different, I can see that. It's a nice place.
This place is gorgeous. There's no other way of describing it. But we didn't have the money back then to have something like this.
In the early days, Dow Corning's hyper-pure silicon plant was located on a 2-track road. At the time, Jerry Kellogg was a surveyor in Detroit, finding paths for highways that would soon carry names like The Lodge, I-75, US 23, and even US 131. But Jerry was soon to be married and wanted to return to the Great Lakes Bay region.
When I got here, I almost drove away. It was all woods, and all there was a 2-tracker back to a house. Well, finally, I drove back in there. I almost went back to Detroit, but I didn't. And there's 80 guys lined up to go up this house. They were interviewing upstairs.
Well, I was laid off from Dow Chemical at the time I came out here and stood in that long line at the farmhouse and made it up the stairway to the 2nd floor and received my first interview. 4 hours later, I finally got up there and this guy come out and he introduced himself. I didn't know him, nor I didn't know who he worked for or what. It ended up being Jack Ludington, and he interviewed me and asked me what I had had for education, what I was doing and everything. Well, Jack ended up 5 years later. He was the CEO and president of Dow Corning. I didn't even know it, but I was talking to the top dog. One thing when we started here, most of the guys had the attitude, including myself, was that either we made it go or we didn't have a job. And I think that's what drove this bunch of people to do what they did. I mean, we were all in a unanimous group that we either made it or we didn't make it. That's all there was to it.
Norm Jardis interviewed in the same farmhouse, but quickly noticed how 5 new buildings had been erected on the west side of the plant. That and the people he met that day gave him confidence in the company and future growth.
I was working a summer job after my 2nd year of college, and a friend of mine, Larry LeClaire, worked here, and he suggested that I apply for work here. And it paid a lot more money than my summer job. So I came and interviewed. They said they were hiring full-time people, not temporaries. So I told them I'd work full-time, fully intending to quit and go to school. And that hasn't happened yet. The first silicon that we made here was, the rods were, I think, 14 or 15 inches long. It was a great achievement when we grew 1-inch diameter material. You know, now they talk tons per day.
At the time, silicon was so new and novel that some people wondered about job security. After all, only a few electronic devices were on the market. Was this a trend that would disappear, or something that would stand the test of time?
I really believed that once everybody had a calculator, that was the end of the silicon business. And then they put silicon in wristwatches. And I thought, well, after everybody's got a wristwatch, we're done again.
But that never happened. Instead, Hemlock Semiconductor saw a surge of market applications as the information age gathered speed, from the early transistor radios to desktop computers. New solar cells reinvigorated the market, and automotive applications multiplied. Silicon was here to stay, and so was Hemlock Semiconductor, earning a reputation not just for product quality, but also for making safety a top priority.
I think probably the safety in this plant was probably as good as you could ask for. I think people back in that era were really safety conscious and didn't know it, because a lot of them had farm backgrounds.
The expansion of Hemlock Semiconductor has created a landscape that is entirely new and modern. While they miss the memories of the old buildings, all of these men are proud of the role they played in Hemlock Semiconductor's success.
We had a super crew of guys that got this place going. I don't think I could have worked for a better place than what this was. We were a family.
Just as astounding to each of them is the degree of commitment that Hemlock Semiconductor has shown to the community and to enabling progress.
Dow Corning or HSC, I constantly read in the paper where they're doing things for different communities and stuff locally here. You take anything that moves in your house or in your car, if it wasn't for this plant, they wouldn't be running. So I think probably this plant really is a big thing to the whole world, really. You come right down to it.
Today, Hemlock Semiconductor and Dow Corning are able to celebrate 50 years of progress, thanks to the legacy of people like Al, Jerry, and Norm, people who are quick to point out that they not only cared for the company, but the company cared for them as well.
They treated you well, they paid you well, benefits were good. I don't know what else you could ask for.
That was one of my big goals, was to get to be 50 years old so I could retire, and by golly, I made it.
Oh, I think I like retirement. I'd advise it to anyone. Someday you'll get to try it too.
Back in 1961, a dream was born to create a world leader in polycrystalline silicon production. Today, Hemlock Semiconductor has exceeded expectations thanks to the commitment of employees like these and to the amazing support from local communities. But the best is yet to come, as our products help drive two powerhouse industries, electronics and solar energy. Solar in particular is launching a new era of growth and expansion while creating jobs, improving energy security, and enhancing the environment. Hemlock Semiconductor and Dow Corning proudly celebrating 50 years of success.